They laughed the moment he rolled into the parking lot. Not a soft chuckle, not a polite smirk. It was the kind of loud, mocking laughter you hear when someone believes they're above you. The kind that echoes off concrete and bruises your pride, if you let it. The truck responsible for their amusement groaned to a stop, its rusty fenders rattling slightly as the engine sputtered and died. The paint had long since peeled away, replaced by patches of dull primer and sun-bleached metal. One headlight was clouded. The tailgate hung just a little crooked. It looked like it had been rescued from a junkyard, or belonged there. A group of sharply dressed men, near the front doors of the Arion Motors corporate office, turned their heads in disbelief. "Yo, who let that thing on the property?" One of them scoffed, laughing into his coffee cup. "Looks like someone's grandpa lost a bet." Another chimed in. "That bucket got more rust than my grill tools." The jokes kept coming. Even the receptionist inside peeked out the window, confused by the beat-up truck parked between two gleaming Teslas. But the man behind the wheel? He didn't flinch. Elijah Turner stepped out of the truck with quiet confidence. He wore old jeans, work boots, and a polo shirt that had clearly been washed more times than it should have been. A slight limp in his right leg, a gentle squint from decades of sun exposure, and hands weathered from turning wrenches. To those laughing, he looked like a maintenance guy, maybe someone's uncle who came to fix the AC. But Elijah didn't look at them. He didn't throw a glance or a frown or a comeback. He just shut the truck door gently, grabbed a well-worn leather satchel from the passenger seat, and walked up the stairs. What they didn't know, that man in the rusty truck designed the cars they drove. Elijah wasn't a mechanic. He wasn't there to fix the plumbing or refill vending machines. He was the chief visionary engineer at Arion Motors, the brains behind the company's most successful electric and hybrid vehicles. The reason their stock had tripled in the last 5 years. But Elijah never cared for titles. He cared about work, about craft, about doing the kind of job where your results do the talking, even when people like those guys try to shout over them. Inside the building, executives snapped to attention as Elijah entered the design suite. One of the vice presidents practically ran to greet him. "Elijah, you made it," he said, slightly out of breath. "We've been waiting to go over the Falcon redesign." "Let's get to it then," Elijah said, smiling like he hadn't just walked past a bunch of grown men behaving like high school bullies. In the room, holograms flickered to life. Sleek chassis outlines, battery architecture diagrams, aerodynamic testing footage. At the center of it all, Elijah's hand-drawn sketches. He still did everything by hand before handing it off to the 3D artists. To him, pen and paper were sacred. Machines built the cars, but ideas built the machines. As he moved through the designs, he pointed out micro-adjustments in the airflow system, recalibrations to improve mileage by 7%, and a revolutionary new way to reduce drag on high-speed turns by altering the panel curve by just a few millimeters. The execs in the room? They took notes. Quietly, attentively, because they knew. This wasn't just a designer. Elijah Turner was an institution, a legend in the auto world, the man responsible for turning Arion from a struggling startup into a titan of innovation. Back outside, the men who had laughed at him were still whispering amongst themselves. "Wait, I think that's Elijah Turner," one of them finally said. "No way," the slick-haired guy replied. "That can't be him. He's driving a truck held together by duct tape." The third one pulled out his phone and Googled Elijah's name. There it was, article after article. Elijah Turner, the quiet genius behind Arion's success, the mind who made electric cool. Black visionary reinvents the supercar. His picture showed up too, older now, but unmistakable. Their faces drained of color. Inside, Elijah wrapped up the presentation. The team applauded, not because they were told to, but because what he'd just shown them would change the auto industry again. He exited the boardroom to find one of the interns waiting shyly in the hallway. Young, bright-eyed, and clearly nervous. "Mr. Turner?" she asked. "Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to say I really look up to you." Elijah smiled warmly. "You're not interrupting, and I'm glad you're here. I read your interview in Tech Motion. You said the best engineers aren't the ones with the fanciest resumes. They're the ones who don't give up when the wrench slips. Elijah chuckled. That sounds like me. You ever get hit in the face with a slipping wrench? She laughed. Twice this month. Good, he said. That means you're learning. Back in the parking lot, Elijah made his way to his truck. This time, the suited men didn't say a word. They pretended to be on their phones, or looking at clouds, or tying invisible shoelaces. But Elijah wasn't fooled. He could feel their eyes, their discomfort, their shame. One of them, Marcus, mustered the courage to step forward. Mr. Turner, he said, clearing his throat. I didn't know. About you. Earlier. You don't need to know about someone to treat them with decency, Elijah replied, turning his key in the ignition. The truck roared loudly, but proudly. Right, Marcus mumbled, stepping back. That night, Elijah didn't go to a mansion. He went home to a one-story house he'd bought decades ago. He could have bought a penthouse, or a villa, or an entire island, but he liked it here. The backyard had a vegetable garden. The garage? That was his real palace. Inside, shelves lined the walls, filled with old parts, tools, blueprints, sketches, patents. One corner of the garage held a prototype he'd been working on in secret. A zero-emission engine powered by hydrogen-infused biofuel. Still rough. Still experimental. But it ran. And like every good invention Elijah ever made, it started as a scribble on a napkin in that very garage. Later that week, someone uploaded a short video to social media. It showed Elijah driving into the Arion lot in his rusty truck. The mocking laughter from the other men. The smug looks. The walk inside. Then, clips from news articles, award ceremonies, and a picture of Elijah standing next to the first-ever Falcon E3. The caption. They laughed at the man in the rusty truck. He designed the car they drove in. The video went viral overnight. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. This is why I'll never judge someone by their car again. Real success doesn't scream, it just works. From now on, I ride with the rust. Even celebrities weighed in. One A-list actor tweeted, "Respect to Elijah Turner, the realest engineer in the game." Soon after, Arion Motors published a tribute video titled From Wrenches to Wonders, the story of Elijah Turner. It showcased his early days, growing up in a small town with no money, but an obsession with engines. His scholarship to a state university. His decision to reject offers from bigger car companies because they didn't respect his ideas. The ending quote from Elijah himself, "Some folks chase shiny. I chase better." That video hit 30 million views in 3 days. By the following Monday, Arion CEO called an emergency staff meeting. "We're not just making vehicles," he said, standing in front of a massive screen. "We're carrying forward a legacy. Mr. Turner's vision is what this company stands for. Humility, innovation, purpose." He turned to Elijah and added, "And that rusty truck? We'll never let anyone mock that again. It belongs in the lobby." They laughed, but this time with admiration. Elijah declined the offer to retire the truck. "Let it live," he said. "It still runs. And it's got more work to do." Weeks later, Elijah initiated a new program at Arion called Road Builders, a paid internship and mentorship opportunity for young black students from underrepresented communities to explore automotive engineering. He handpicked the first 10 interns himself. And guess what? Every one of them showed up in clunky, old, worn-out cars. Beat-up rides that stalled at stop signs and burned more oil than they should. But they walked tall, because they knew who was waiting for them on the other side of those doors. In the first week of the program, one intern asked him, "Mr. Turner, if you're this big-time engineer, why don't you just buy a Lamborghini?" Elijah chuckled and looked out at the truck parked just outside the garage. "I don't need a Lamborghini to prove I belong," he said. "I built something better. I built myself." And that was the truth. Because real success doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need to prove itself with loud engines or shiny rims. It hums quietly in the background, building legacies from scrap, molding dreams from rust, and proving, day after day, that respect is something you earn with substance, not shine. So the next time you see someone in an old car, don't laugh. Don't assume. They just might be building the future you'll drive in tomorrow. Like this story? Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful real-life tales, and tap the bell icon so you never miss when greatness rolls in, no matter what it looks like on the outside. Because sometimes the rustiest rides carry the strongest engines.